If I had sat down, spent a year doing a business plan, I wouldn't have done it. The whole 9 to 5, 5-day week thing, invented in the 50s. It was made for factory workers. And I've been in situations where I would go into the office not knowing when I can leave. I reached a point where I was morbidly obese. I weighed over 131 kilos.
I've seen you recently do a project with Cristiano Ronaldo's wife. Sometimes it can be challenging.
Honestly, I think because I'm very strict and particular with the criteria of clients that we onboard.
Looking back, do you have any regret of any of the decisions that you've made?
They were all risks. I had no idea what was going to come out of it.
So we're just about to shoot an episode with Ruwaida, and what I really like about Ruwaida's story is that she had to come so many obstacles and to get to where she is today. Also, she has this innovative approach of building a business. In fact, her GRN consultancy is a women-only agency, so she only hires women, and you'll find out her reason why on the show. But also more importantly, they work 3 days in the office, 1 day virtually, and 3 days are off. Yet they're efficient, profitable, and extremely successful. So you're gonna get a lot of great insights into building a business, going after your dream, and really overcoming hard decisions in order for you to build the dream and freedom that you want. So join us, and looking forward to see you in this episode. Ruwaida, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ruwaida, first question, as we ask all our guests, is freedom. What does freedom mean to you?
For me, freedom is having the ability to live authentically and make choices that align with my values and that would allow me to pursue what I'm passionate about.
Okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I want to talk to you about, but first I want to go back to your upbringing. Grew up in Libya. Diplomatic father. Just kind of give us about how life was back then and how it shaped you to who you are today.
Sometimes when people would talk to me about friends that they've known for 20 years or 25 years, or I don't know what that means, because I've never had friends for extended periods of time because of my father's work. We used to travel every 4 years. And sometimes we'd do 4 years abroad, we'd go back for a couple of years and we'd go back. So I've never really truly felt like I belonged anywhere. I've never had long-term friendships. So for me, it was always, everything was just moving all the time. Sometimes I don't grasp it. Even with my husband would say, oh, I've known this guy for 30 years. And I'm like, how is that possible? How do you know someone for that long? My father was a diplomat, and we traveled to many different places. And I think that made me grow up a bit sooner. I am impatient. I always want to do the next thing. I want more.
That's interesting, because I am somebody who, values relationships. It's one of my, characteristics. And I have a lot of long-term relationships. But I also believe that, to every side of the coin, obviously, every coin has two sides. And even though that might have kind of hindered your relationships, but it probably helped you gain a lot of self-dependence. And is that, do you think, something that helped you as you got older into the world?
I think it helps you, to depend on yourself a lot. Not to be broken when something ends or something changes, because for me, change was the only constant, right? And it kind of makes you, rely on yourself a lot more. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I kind of grew up learning not to love too much or get attached too much, because I know it's gonna change. It's not. I can't get used to it, and I love that. Don't get me wrong. And even as an adult, when I left my family and I moved around. I didn't stay in one place, and I like that. I think the longest place I've stayed as an adult is probably Dubai.
One thing we were talking about before the show, I told you it was interesting that somebody says, hey, I did have a privileged life. And most people, when they hear that, they think, okay, if you have a privileged life, you must also had all the advantages that you want, and must to achieve your goals and dreams must have been a lot easier. But in your case, not so. So I'll just talk about how maybe having such life created, I guess, a certain requirements or expectations, and how you were able to shape your own future from there.
Yeah, so I think it's obviously great. I had great access to education. I traveled, I saw the world, I was exposed to different cultures at a very young age. But yeah, I think that kind of privilege, when it's not yours, it belongs to someone else, right? It belongs to my parents. So it comes with a price. And the price is that you don't have the freedom to choose a career or a life partner or what it is you want to do with your life, because it's expected that, you know, I'm giving you this, so you have to do this. And so even my choice of career, so I did my high school and my college degree, well, the first year in Malaysia. My dad was the charge d'affaires at the embassy in Kuala Lumpur, and then he was moved back to his term had ended, so he was moved back to Tripoli, and that was in 2003 when Libya was still under the embargo. I mean, even getting to Libya was a challenge. Like, we had to either fly to somewhere and then drive from Tunisia, or anyway. And at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I had so many minors in my foundation year. Like, I minored in IT. I did interior design. I did business administration. I did marketing. Like, I just didn't know. I always wanted to be a lawyer, actually. And everyone always says I would have been a great lawyer because I'm great at arguing. But yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And when we moved back, I went from, you know, having independence, having my own, you know, going to university. And I was interning in the university where I was studying in the marketing department. And I went back to, you know, where you're expected to just sit home or go shopping or, you know, go to a wedding, hopefully impress someone's mom. And it wasn't me. And I was 18 at that point. And I was really starting to get depressed. Like, I you know, when you feel like you don't, this is not my life. I don't want to go to a wedding and dress up just so that someone's mom would see me and hopefully choose me for her son. Like, that's not me, you know, that's not how my future is going to be. And I remember my cousin had called me and she said, I'm going to pass by and pick you up and take you for a coffee. And I'm like, I really don't want to go anywhere. And she's like, no, they just opened. So the embargo was being lifted at that stage. And she said, they just opened this new hotel. And it was the first international 5-star hotel. So obviously we had 5-star hotels, but they were all local brands. Because of the embargo, it was impossible to have international brands in Libya. So, and it was the Corinthia Hotel. So she called and I was like, okay, fine, we'll go. And when I walked into that lobby, I saw hotels for the of course, I've been in hotels all my life, right? You travel, you have events. But when I walked through that lobby, it felt like I entered a different world because it was just so many people. There were different nationalities. People are having meetings. People are being busy. And I'm like, I want this. I want this energy. I just, it feels like I walked out of whatever it is I was in before. And I just, that's all I could think about the whole time we were having that coffee. And then before we left, I stopped at the reception. I asked, are you hiring? And they happened to be looking for a sales and marketing coordinator. And I basically ticked all the boxes. I was Libyan, which is obviously something that, you know, Libyanization in there. I spoke English, I spoke Arabic. I actually had some experience because I was interning in the marketing department. So then I got the details of the HR person, and I had interviews and stuff. It took me 4 months to convince my parents to let me take the job, because, again, this was 2003 in Libya. It was like 20 years ago, a bit more. And like, what do you mean? You can't work in a hotel. That's not an industry that befits us. Like, what are people gonna say? What do you mean? Like, it's a service industry. You can't do that. And I persisted, and yeah, and I think that decision probably changed the entire course of my life. Just that simple cup of coffee that just made me look at hotels differently.
So the interesting thing about that is that, anytime that people pursue freedom, there comes a pivotal moment, right? And that is usually like, and it can be like random, and it usually comes from a place that you don't even expect. So I don't think you probably thought this cup of coffee would have led to you seeing something that you had a passion about and an industry that you wanted. Most people, I don't think it's that easy for them to see something and say, oh, I love this. But even if they do, then the second part is the challenge of actually achieving it. So for you to speak to your parents and for them to actually say, well, no, this is not why we raised you. This is not the expectations that that they had of you, and that can be very difficult, right? Would you say that this is a decision that you made with their support, or this is a decision that you made that sometimes you were like, look, even if I have to break some things off, I still need to pursue this because this is for me?
I think that the second part happened later, but the thing is, I mean, now that I'm in my late 30s and I'm a parent, I do see it from my parents' perspective, because I was 18. I was still in university, and I was like, I'll study remotely. And the thing is, it wasn't really part of the culture back then. Like, especially when you didn't need to work, like, why? Like, finish university first. Like, education is very important in Libya. We have one of the highest literacy rates in the world. And so yes, of course, you have to go to university. You have to finish your studies. I'm like, yes, I'll do that as well as. And they just couldn't understand why I would want to do that. Why do I want to work while I'm studying? It's not like I need to support myself, or I need to survive, or any of that, or I need the salary. And they couldn't understand why I'm in such a hurry to do it. Like, finish university 4 years, then you can get a job, because that is the order how things are done, right? But it's just, I think it wasn't probably my first rebellious act. Like, my parents were, but I think my rebellious acts grew bigger and bigger as I got older. I frankly think I just tired them out. I wouldn't let it go.
Yeah. And you started sales and marketing.
Yes, so I started as a sales and marketing coordinator. And that wasn't like the end of the struggles. It was the beginning, because then I had to fight with the people that were looking at me thinking, why is this teenager here? They wouldn't see my qualifications, my ambition, my abilities, but I was the only Libyan girl in the department. And I was promoted very quickly. I think like 9 months later, I was promoted to a sales and marketing executive. And and the hospitality industry now and 20 years ago is very male dominated. So there were a lot of men who now held the same position as me, and they couldn't stomach that. And I remember having a conversation with one of them, and I was like, if you have a problem with being at the same level and having the same position as a 19-year-old, then that's on you, not on the 19-year-old. You need to do something about that for you. Like, fighting me is not going to change the fact that I, at 19, achieved what you have achieved at 35. So yeah, it was an interesting journey.
Why were you so driven, even at a young age?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And I don't know what it is that I was driven to. The only thing I knew is that I was not okay with other people's visualization of what my life is supposed to be. And that's what I couldn't accept. And I think now, looking back, I think subconsciously I recognize that in order for me to have the freedom to do what I want, I need to have financial independence. I don't think a 19-year-old me understood that, but it is what I was basically doing. I was setting myself to be financially independent.
Right, but they kind of have to coexist, right? Because a lot of people.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I was 19.
Right. So a lot of people want financial independence, but they do not control their fate. So, they might have a job that they don't like. They might be in a career. Maybe they went to school to study something. They spend so much time and money and energy, and then they realize, well, listen, this is probably not the career that I wanted. And then they feel like they're stuck there. So a lot of people just don't have the capacity to say, all right, if this is freedom for me, then these are the sacrifices that I need to make. So in your case, obviously, I'm sure there was a lot of things that 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds were doing, maybe going out, maybe having fun.
Not in Libya. In 2003.
In general, but
Yeah.
for even if you were other parts of it, but for you to have a career and to be focused at that young age, you would have had to sacrifice a lot of those things. So, do you think people, a path to freedom and sacrifice, they kind of have to go hand in hand?
100%. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I would have to, because I had a full-time job, right? It wasn't like an internship or whatever. So I arranged it that I would, I enrolled in university. I would study on my own time, just go for exams. But I basically had a full-time job. So I would wake up at 7, work until 5, 6 o'clock, which again, in Libya, it's that kind of working schedule wasn't the norm, right? Because most people had government jobs, or like everyone's home by 1, 2 o'clock. So having a full day from 7 and actually going when you're supposed to go to work, like a lot of people couldn't understand it. Like even in my family, like be it my sisters or my cousins or whatever, like I would wake up at 7 and be working until like go to the office at 8, be back home at 5:30, 6 o'clock. It was like, why? That's like, why are you doing it? And like, or if it was summer, winter, like everyone's going to the beach or going out or traveling. I'm like, no, I'm working. I can't. And yeah, they just couldn't get why.
And then from there, tell us. So you went from that career, started sales marketing, just in the corporate world. You went all the way to was it
so
yeah.
And again, so this is why I think that cup of coffee was really a huge turning point in my life, because I met my ex-husband in working in that hotel. And that was the second challenge, because my ex-husband was from Malta. And that is just not something that Libyan women would do again. 20 years ago. I think now it's a little bit different. Like you had to get government permission to marry someone who's, especially for a woman, to marry someone who's not Libyan. And again, what are people going to say? You can't do this to the family name. We have, you have 3 other sisters. Like, what do you mean you want to marry a foreigner? Why? Like, why? And so that was like the second thing. So I met my ex-husband there, and we were working in the hotel, and then I think 2 years in, he had to be transferred back, because Corinthia is a Maltese hotel group, and he was being transferred back to Malta. And I was like, yeah, I don't believe in long distance relationships. So if you're leaving, you're leaving. He was like, no, let's get married. So I tried to convince my parents again. And they had known him. So again, my parents are very open-minded. My mom has a PhD. My dad's a diplomat. And like they've met him. He's been over with friends to our house, like birthday parties or things like that. And they're like, yeah, friendship is fine, but it can't be anymore, because what would people say? But I persisted. And I did take dramatic measures. But we got married.
How old were you then? When you first?
I was probably 20, going on 21. And again, I do get it. In fairness, I get it from my parents' point of view. I didn't know any better. There was a bit of, I was naive. I didn't know what to expect. But I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I was like, if I'm making a mistake, then let me make the mistake. It would be my mistake to make. I don't want to live my life based on what would people say. I don't care what people would say. It is my life. So if I'm making a mistake, let me make the mistake. It's let me be responsible for my mistake, but I cannot not know or not do because of fear of what if. So yeah, so we moved to Malta, and again, that's the beautiful thing about hospitality, right? Like you could work anywhere. So I worked in my ex-husband was working with Corinthia still. I worked with Starwood, with La Meridienne, with Intercon, and Malta's beautiful. I mean, it's a charming little island. I love it. I speak fluent Maltese, which is completely useless, unless you're speaking to another Maltese person about other people know and understand, which is great. Except sometimes when I'm in Malta, I forget that everyone understands. Anyway, I digress. So after 3 years in Malta, it was that thing again. It was like, it's not enough. It's too small for me. And even 20 years later, like I know people I worked with 20 years ago in Malta that are still in the same place doing the same job. And I just, to me, that's just, I don't get it. But moving to Malta was very eye-opening, because all of a sudden, I was married. We had bills to pay. You know, I didn't even think about water and electricity back then. Like I thought it would magically. I didn't even know you paid for it. You know, and it sounds silly, but it's true. I didn't. And actually, in Libya, we didn't pay for water and electricity. And I remember my ex-husband would be like walking around the apartment, just switching off all the lights, turning off the air conditioning, and I'm like, why? And he's like, because you know you have to pay for it. So that was, I think, one of my first, and here I paid the price of that freedom by my parents basically cutting me off. So whereas my siblings all got cars bought for them, they got, they still lived in the family home. Everything was covered for them for as long as they need. I was completely cut off. So it was an awakening of, oh, hang on. I got here, but there's more to it. There's things you didn't know. And after 3 years of living in Malta, I knew that's not it. Like, so it's not just that I wanted to live abroad or marry a foreigner, or there's more. This is not it, and this is not the place where I'm going to achieve it. So. And at that stage, I was still in the beginning of my career. My ex-husband was a bit more advanced, so I recognized that we need to move out of Malta. But I knew that it would be probably easier for him to get a job than for me to get a job, because I was junior. So I started applying for jobs for him, and he didn't really know. And I remember one day he got a call from the Ritz-Carlton, and we were sitting together in Bahrain. And he was like, yeah, you applied for a job of director of whatever. And he was like, I did. And I'm like, yes, yes. So anyway, long story short, he gone through interviews, he got the job. And we moved to Bahrain, which was our first experience in the GCC. Love Bahrain, love the Bahraini people. And so my ex-husband got the job, and I had to, I wanted to work as well, so I got a job, and we were in Bahrain for 2 years. I also ended up working with the Ritz-Carlton. Then we moved to Qatar. Again, it was a job I applied for him because I wanted more. In Qatar, I worked with the Movenpick, and then I worked with the Shangri-La Group, who were opening their first property in Qatar. I was in Qatar for about 5 years, and then they moved me to the regional office in Dubai in 2016. And then, yeah, from there I was, first I was senior PR manager, then regional PR director, then I went all the way to vice president PR and comms for Middle East, India, Indian Ocean, Europe, and America.
did you ever feel that you got the respect as being a female in such roles from your colleagues?
You don't get it. You need to claw it out. It's like I've sat through meetings where, and I think things have slowly changed, but not because people changed. It's because people are more aware that they can get in trouble for things now. So like I've sat in meetings where, sexist comments are being said, or like, nobody really acknowledges the woman sitting in the room. And I've been in multiple meetings where it's, me and a bunch of men in gray suits. But yeah, I think, which is probably one of the reasons why in my company, I only hire women.
So I want to get into that. I know you started, your company, but before that, was there a shift again where, what was the moment when you're like, okay, you know what, this corporate life is great, but let me go start my own consultancy?
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly like that. So I was married to my ex-husband for 15 years. And just before my 34th birthday, I remember sitting down with him. And my ex-husband and I are great friends to this day. Like, we holiday together and everything. We have 2 children together. And I told him, I love you, but I'm not in love. I don't think we could probably stay married and be married for the rest of our lives. But I don't think it would be fair to either one of us. I don't want to stay for the sake of the children. I want to leave for the sake of the children before we can no longer stand each other, or before it becomes acrimonious, or before someone cheats. You know what I mean? Like, I want to preserve this because you were the closest person to me for the longest time since I was a teenager growing up. But I feel like, and I think it took me a while to understand that, because divorce is a big taboo, right? And it took me a while to understand that just because I'm getting divorced, it doesn't mean this relationship has failed. This relationship has been successful for this long. If I continue, it won't be successful anymore. And we had a very amicable divorce. And I think there was a period in between where I did go through some different levels of struggles. I think I was a bit unhappy at some point, and I took that on food. So I was emotionally eating. I reached a point where I was morbidly obese. I weighed over 131 kilos. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's see some pictures.
I will show you the pictures. I actually post them.
Really?
Yeah, because I think people should speak more about that. And I think it was a way of me, because I shouldered responsibility at a young age. Either it's a full-time job or marriage or going out from the comfort of my family. And I think that all of that added up, and it was stress, and I was eating my stress. I was eating my unhappiness, because it's not easy. It's not easy to move every few years. When I moved from Malta to Bahrain, my first job was like 4,000 dirhams. You can't hire anyone for 4,000 dirhams anymore. But I was happy. I was like, for me, it was great, but it was also tough. Like, I remember we would sometimes, especially in the beginning when I wasn't working, we would go out for dinner, and I would like save a bread roll so I can have it for breakfast the next day. And again, this was a choice, and this was after having had a completely different life where I didn't have to worry about stuff like that. Like, even when I was working in Libya, I would get my salary and it would be cash in my pocket, and I'll just go out and spend it. I had no financial responsibility. Like, I think I do have some form of ADHD, because I feel like my brain is always one step ahead of me, and my subconscious does things that then I later understand why I did it. So I basically woke up one day and I was like, okay, I'm not happy. This is not me that I'm projecting outwards. This is not my body. Like, and the funny thing is, even now when I look back at my old pictures, like, I was still would wear loud colors. Like, I wasn't hiding in black, or you know what I mean. Like, I would still wear fuchsia and electric blue, and because that's me, that's my personality. But I didn't feel like my body fits my personality. And I just woke up one day and I made an appointment with the doctor, and I said, I wanted to get the balloon. And the doctor was like, I'm going to be honest with you, that's not going to be enough for you, because you are morbidly obese, so it's not going to fix your problem. And he recommended that I go see another doctor. I said, but he's really busy. It will take probably a few weeks to get an appointment. And I was like, okay. And it was in Healthcare City. And I remember I was like, you know what, I'm going to go right now. So I crossed the street from one clinic to the other. And I'd like to see this doctor. And they're like, oh, you're lucky, he just got a cancellation. So I actually walked straight in. And I listened to my gut a lot. So I met the doctor, I liked him, and I decided to have a gastric sleeve. I think when you've reached a stage where you need to lose 70 kilos, which is what I did. Unless you go on one of those shows and live on an island and do nothing but exercise and eat healthy, it's just not possible. I had twins at that stage. I was working, like it's just not possible. And I scheduled the surgery, and I didn't tell my ex-husband. And again, looking back now, I understand why, because he would have probably talked me out of it. And I only told him the night before. And I think they always say, from the moment you get a divorce, you decided it like 2 years ago. So I think I was already subconsciously aware that relationship is not forever. So I actually told him the night before. I was like, I booked a surgery. It's all done. I don't want you to come. You can come and pick me up, but don't come with me, because I knew he was going to make me nervous. I knew he was going to try and talk me out of it or whatever. And it was tough. I mean, people think people who have this kind of surgery are taking the easy way out, but it's not, because it's a lifelong decision, right? Yes, I look great and I lost 70 kilos, but I love food. Like, one of my passions is cooking. I love cooking. I love eating, but I can't eat anymore. I mean, it's been probably 6 years since I had the surgery, but because I actually stuck to it and I followed the instructions. So I've had 2 kids after I've had the surgery, but I still didn't put the weight back, because I actually followed the post-operation procedures and all of that, and I restrict restricted my food intake and all of that. So I can't eat. Like, I would take a bite or 2 and I'm full. So it's not, that was the price for that freedom,
Yeah. No, it's I think we have that theme going. I mean, it seems like every single time we made a decision for change, right? I mean, this is really the pattern for freedom, and this is really what this entire concept is about, right? Freedom is a journey, but to go on that journey, you have to make tough decisions. And to make those tough decisions, you have to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
So whether it's relationships, whether it's food or things that you like. Yeah. Looking back, do you have any regret of any of the decisions that you've made?
No. I think honestly, I think there were 3 or 4 big decisions in my life that were all risks. I had no idea what was going to come out of it. And the same thing when I ended my marriage, I was like, okay, I'm going to be the single woman. I'm going to be, the single mother. I'm going to take care of the kids. And 2 months later, I met my current husband. And it's a completely different kind of relationship. Like, he's the guy who wouldn't mind sitting outside while I'm sitting in here for an hour. He doesn't mind to be the +1. He doesn't mind. He was actually the one that pushed me to start my own business, because it was never something I dreamt about. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who, like, their dream is to be their own boss and to have their own business, but that was never it for me. I loved thriving in a big corporate environment. I loved being the only one there, because when you're the first one means they're going to be second and third, and there's going to be other people. You make it possible for others when you're the first at doing something. And I really loved it. But then it got to a point where I reached that point where there was nothing else for me. I was already reporting to the regional CEO. I was managing like 4 continents. What's next? It became the same. Everything became, and I didn't want to move to a different hospitality company and do the same jobs just under a different banner, because that's just cheating. It's not change. And a lot of people would always tell me, you should really do this for yourself. You're really good at this. And I'm like, and I think that was part of the price you pay for being in the corporate environment, is that you believe that you're not good enough. It's not you that's good. It's because you have the power of the big company behind you. It's because you have that corporate entity. It's not you. You can't do it on your own. And I truly believe that. And I still sometimes have that, like, but one of the people that were really my biggest supporters was my husband. He was the one who was like, of course you can do this. Like, you have to do this. Not only can you can, but you have to. And again, I didn't sit down. I didn't do a business plan. I didn't study. I didn't, do. And I think if I had done that, I think if I'd sat down, and I think it's true for every other decision, if I had sat down and I said, okay, so this is the business plan, this is the risk, this is how much financial investment, this is this. I didn't do any of that. I actually, I'm lucky that I live in Dubai, where I opened the company via WhatsApp. I didn't even have to go anywhere. You work with one of these companies, they register the business for you, they do everything, you don't have to go anywhere. But that was the easy part. But like, I leased an office for a year before I even had a client. So again, it's a lot of risk taking, right? But I think I needed to put that pressure on myself, because I felt I don't like doing things halfway. If I'm saying I'm doing luxury hospitality, I represent the best brands in the world, then I can't be doing that working from my living room or from a coffee shop. I need to have an office, and it needs to be nice. And there was a time when it was still just me. I mean, now I have a team of 12, but like when it was just me, I would go to the office at 8 by myself and stay there till 5 by myself, And again, it didn't make sense to a lot of people. People like, why don't you wait until you make a bit more money and then you lease an office, or why don't you just work from home, or why don't hire people yet? Just don't do that. Wait a bit, suffer a bit, and then hire. And I'm like, no. I think luxury it's not just chandeliers. I think luxury is space, luxury is people, luxury is not making people work 18 hours a day just so that you can save a salary of another person.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, a lot of people, when they have an idea, whether it's to start a business or to pursue something that's meaningful to them, at that same moment, all these thoughts come into your mind, and 99.9% of them is just fear. Your mind just trying to keep you safe. And if you feed into it, like, for example, yes, in some cases, you might need to sit down and do a business plan, and assess all the risks, all that. But that's really just feeding into your fear. I know people that have been working on the business plan for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And I also know someone who started a business not knowing anything about the industry, not knowing anything, but they just took massive action. And that's the key. I feel most people hold themselves back because of 5,000 things and 5,000 voices in their head. But the only thing that matters is taking action. So for you to just wake up and be like, okay, you know what?
I'm doing it.
I believe it. Maybe I don't see it yet. It's not there, but I believe it. I am going to have this office. But you're not just, building the office because for your own sake. That there's a purpose.
It wasn't vanity, no.
Yeah.
And like even then, when we started, getting business, in the first 4 months of establishing the business, I probably rejected about 1 million dirhams in retainers, because I didn't like the company or like the project, or like I needed to love it. And until this day, we don't accept anything. Just because you're giving me money, or you can afford our services, doesn't mean that I think, and people don't really get that. Like sometimes when we reject a business proposal, we're like, but what do you mean? We agree to the rate? It's not like, yeah, I know, but like we don't think it's right. And I think that's another thing. And yes, I am lucky to be able to not be, because some people don't have a choice, right? Some people have to accept all the business because they want to make money. But I'm not driven by money. I want epic. I want iconic, as much as that word is overused. But I do want iconic projects. I don't want just about anything. So yes, I will. And people will be like, "Are you sure?" But just take whatever you can in the beginning, and then later you change. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I think you should start how you plan to continue. So I rejected so much business in the beginning, and people were thinking that I'm mad. And I'm like, no, but I can't. If I'm saying I'm doing luxury, then I'm doing luxury. And even in 5-star, there's 5-star, and there's 5-star. So yeah.
I've consulted a lot of business over the years, and one thing I've noticed is that the ones that are most miserable are also the ones who just take on anyone as a client because they're too desperate. And now you cater to somebody that you don't like, you're not aligned with, they don't understand your values, and all of a sudden you're doing work and services that is not even what's on your scope or who you are and what you can comfortably and passionately deliver.
But then what's the point?
And then
because
it
if the whole
it feels like a job again.
Yeah,
and you actually work for them.
Exactly.
Because they're making you do things that you don't want to do. And the concept of owning a business is doing what you love, doing something that gives you, not only bringing the best value out of you, but also makes the best impact for your customers.
100%.
And if you can't do that, then
what's the
might
point?
as well just have a So now you have this very innovative, interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but you're one of the few companies that actually have implemented it. So your team works 4 days a week.
Yes.
Technically 3 from the office and 1 virtually, and they're off 3 days.
Yes.
All right. So
it's been like that since it was just
day
me.
one. Okay. Okay. So this is now something you've adapted to. You've always had this.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess it's safe to assume from a moral, like employee or team morale, like it must be amazing for them.
People are confused.
Yeah.
When we have new people.
How come no one's ever in your office, right? I'm sure people still telling like, but from the business perspective, in terms of client satisfaction, in terms of efficiency, in terms of profitability, how has this been working?
Look, I mean, the whole 9 to 5, 5-day week thing was invented in the 50s. It was made for factory workers. And it was at a time when you left work, you actually left work. We don't have that privilege anymore. I strongly don't believe that you need to be chained to a desk 9 hours a day, 5 days a week to be effective. Far from it. I think if you actually look at a typical working day in an office, you remove 3-4 hours between chats, between lunch, between cigarette breaks, between just browsing the internet. But when you go in and I think, and I've been in situations where I would go into the office not knowing when I can leave. I've been my last few years before the consultancy, I was traveling 3 weeks out of 4. Like sometimes I would land, switch airplanes at the airport, not even go home and fly out again, right? I was responsible for different regions. I was managing crisis comms apart from the fun PR stuff. And these are hotels. They're open 24 hours. You could get a call anytime. You are on call anytime. I've managed large scale crises, terrorist attacks. So it's a very stressful, it's a beautiful job, but it's also very stressful. Like there's the fun PR and marketing and activations and campaigns and partnership, but there's also the corporate comms, there's the crisis comms. And I do believe that you cannot be, especially in creative roles, you can't be creative if your mind is not clear. I really do believe in work-life balance, because as much as I love my job, it's one of the things that is me. I'm also a wife. I'm also a mother. I'm also someone who loves to travel. It's not all of my life. It's part of my life. And I think when you go in knowing that, okay, I'm here, I need to finish by this time. or I have these 3 days from the office. I need to maximize the time of the team with the team because I won't see them on Thursday, and then they're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Or like when you're working during the week, you're thinking, I need to get this done so that I can really be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you don't do that, if you're thinking, oh, it's okay, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll work through the weekend. Like, I hate it when someone tells me I'll work through the weekend. No, do not work through the weekend. That is not okay, because I want you to actually come back on Monday and be there, be excited, be engaged, having given your mind the break it needs. I don't believe you need to be sitting in the office to be effective.
So what you're saying basically is, because you have that limited time together as a team,
Yeah.
you guys basically have like objective
Focused. Yes.
focused work,
Yeah.
so that within this window this is done and you're free. Whereas people that have a lot of time allocated to tasks, naturally, they'll just think they have forever, whether it's 5 days and 10 days, doesn't matter, weekends, but actually nothing's being done.
Yeah.
It's just being dragged on and on and on.
Yeah, correct. And I think it's sometimes, like now during the recent Eid holidays, it was the official holiday was Monday, Tuesday. Everyone was back Wednesday. I gave the team the whole week off. And it was two things. And we did it like 2 weeks prior to the official announcement, because it's two things. One, I don't want people to be hanging about until like Thursday night thinking, when are we off? Well, because people cannot plan. People might want to travel, they want to see their family, they can't plan if it's all very last minute. And if I can, why not? It's not going to change my life. We all know that productivity goes down before these big Eids, or before Ramadan, or in the heat of summer. Everything automatically kind of slows down. So why not?
All right, I'm going to ask you this question one more time. So you're saying
you don't believe it, do you?
Works 3 days a week.
Yes.
1 day from home after that. So
correct. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from the office.
Yeah.
Thursday we work from home. Friday, Saturday, Sunday we're
and the
off.
business still thriving.
It is. Yes.
Why don't more leaders, business entrepreneurs take this approach?
I think because of the men in the gray suits, because they come from a different generation where they believe that hard work means, being in the office, and they want to see people coming in and coming out, and but it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. I think we are far more productive and effective because there's a timer, and because people want to have that long weekend every weekend. Like, think about it. Whenever we know that there's a long weekend coming, if you're working in a normal company, you'll be like, oh, I need to get this done because, there's the long weekend. Mm-hmm. So we have that every week. So every week is a long weekend. And I trust my team. I've hired some incredible ladies, and I trust them to manage their own thing. They know if you finished it. I don't care. On Thursdays, if you want to work from the beach, work from the beach. As long you're responsible for your own work. I'm not gonna tell you when to do what. If you finished it, go sit by the beach. I don't care.
Would you say your concept of women-only workplace has more to do with your freedom? Hey, this is my business. I do as I wish, or is it more of a statement?
I think it's because women are gonna be or men are gonna be the dominating gender in any industry. Okay, by nature, just there's more, and I think this is a way for me, and I'm not only hiring any women, like I'm hiring qualified women who are capable, who have the experience, but that might otherwise not get the opportunity simply because of percentages. Like if you open any role on like LinkedIn or whatever, in an hour you'll get like over 100 applicants. Chances are 70% are going to be men. So what are the chances of the 30% of those women getting hired? So I'm only looking at the 30%. And yeah, it's probably again a bit of rebellion, a bit of I can, so I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back at your story, Ruwaida, before I even get to that, like I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I hardly found someone that has freedom in every aspect of their life. So, for example, I might see an entrepreneur who's very successful financially, but at home it's not the same, and he or she they don't want to leave because of the kids or for whatever reason. But for you, if you have started a career that you wanted to get into hospitality, luxury hospitality, you started your business. In your relationship, when you weren't happy with your ex-husband, you made a decision. When you felt like you needed to make a change to your body, you made a decision. Obviously, they all came with a price, but obviously they also had that reward side of it as well. Is there an area in your life today where you're like, this is an area where I still need to find my freedom in?
Honestly, right here, right now, in this instance, no. And
you reach autonomy, which is the ultimate freedom.
Yeah.
Is that...
I right now, everything is awesome. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled professionally. I'm doing something that I really love. And in fact, one of the reasons why I started the agency is because when I was client side for 20 years, I hated PR agencies. I didn't think they understood hotels specifically. And I never could understand how a PR agency would, represent lipstick and Pampers and 5-star hotels and 3-star hotels, because they're very different. And this is why my team are all hoteliers. We only do luxury hospitality and travel. And we do it very differently. Like, this is why it's not even called an agency. It's JRN consultancy, right? And JRN is for journey, by the way. And the way we work, because we actually understand the industry, we have some clients that do not have an in-house team. We are their in-house team. And no one else can really do that. No one else in the market today can do what we do, because we are very specialized. My team are very capable. They come from my GM was a VP as well with one of the largest hotel operators. All of my team have worked with all the top luxury hotels, and we have a lot of clients where, for various reasons, they can't have an in-house team, whether it's because they can't find talents. And the reason why they can't find talents, I mean, not that particular hotel, but the reason why there's a shortage of talents is because people don't want to do it anymore, especially hotels, because it's long hours. The hotel is never closed. There's no work-life balance. So and this is why they keep joining me, because they still get to do what they love, which is hotels, but they don't have to be a slave to it and work 24 hours a day. So I'm doing something that I love and I enjoy, but on my own terms. So I only sign clients that I like. I have actually ended contracts because the client wasn't nice to my team. Because again, this is something else in the industry where people think just because you're consulting for them, they've hired you, then they can treat you however they like. Yeah. But no.
Because, I mean, it's actually one of the questions I had, because I know I've seen you recently do a project with Cristiano Ronaldo's wife. And yes. I'm sure you have a lot of other high caliber clientele. And sometimes it can be, challenging with dealing with people who have such expectations. So how do you manage that, and how do you still keep...
Honestly, I think because... So with the it was for Georgina's birthday where she went to the Maldives. So because I'm very strict and particular with the criteria of clients that we onboard, they match. So I don't have a discrepancy. So when we were working on this, we had one of our clients is Beyond, which is the world's only premium airline. It's an all business class airline that flies to a number of destinations. One of them is the Maldives. So Beyond is our client. We have hyper luxury resorts in the Maldives for Jawali, also our client. So we were able to make it happen because there's that alignment. So if I had, I don't know, a 3-star resort and then a 5-star airline, and then I wanted to take a celebrity, it wouldn't work. But because your bases are aligned, your foundation is aligned, you can do these kind of things a lot easier.
Right. And if you're not aligned as a person, none of that can happen.
Yeah.
All right. So this brings us to our last question of the day.
Oh, already? I thought we were just getting warmed up.
I'm telling you, these good things go by fast. People watching you right now and saying, you know what? I also want to break barriers. I also want to achieve my own freedom. What advice would you give them?
Get out of your own head. I mean, again, obviously every person's circumstances are different. And this could have gone the other way for me, right? But for me, I truly believe if I had sat down and, spent a year doing a business plan and doing this and doing that, I wouldn't have done it. If I had started to even think about the possibility of failure, of not even the financial implication, but like thinking, she used to be this and she had that position and now, she tried. And like that would have killed me. If I had just sat down and thought about that possibility, I wouldn't have done it. So I think as long as what you're planning to do is something that you're passionate about. I mean, for me, passion is really, really important. So if you're not passionate about it, if you don't actually know what you're talking about, don't do it. But as long as you have those two things, the knowledge and the passion, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, look, your journey of making changes, taking risks, failing fast, taking massive action, and being innovative and coming up with a concept. I mean, I love it now. Having the Workweek schedule. Hey, if I ever needed a job, I'm definitely coming to you.
Well, I can't hire you. You're a man.
Listen, I'm also American. I can go to Canada and we can do something about that right these days. But really, it exemplifies freedom, and exemplifies the journey that people must go on if that's what they want to achieve. So I want to thank you for your time and looking forward to watching more of your success.
Thank you. Thank you so much.